I'd like to start out just by thanking Dean, Howie, Michael, and Liz for the organizing this conference here. This was a fascinating way for me to learn about news literacy, and I'm going to be taking many things back to my college and back to my classroom. So just to give you a little background here, I'm going to be talking today about an activity that I share with my statistics class. So at Suffolk County Community College, we teach statistics in the mathematics department. The class is for people who are not majors necessarily in mathematics or the sciences. There are many liberal arts students. It's a very popular class at the college, and it counts for the SUNY general education requirement in mathematics for our students there. This is an activity that I share on the first day of class. It's one of many that I try to infuse news literacy into the curriculum throughout the semester. And I just wanted to show you what I do on that first day of class. And what we do on that first day is we look at some questions related to economics and how they relate to statistics and to the students' lives, their personal lives. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about a couple of different things here, looking at some economic data. And we're going to start off with a question here, a question of how is the economy doing? Okay, so this is a very personal question. It affects everybody. So in the first quarter of 2013, we had a 2.5% annualized growth in the economy, in the GDP, the gross domestic product, which is the sum total of all economic activity in the country. It's a measure of the economic activity in our country. So the economy is growing, but so is our population. So how is the economy really doing? And in order to answer that question, because the economic data from quarter to quarter fluctuates, we'll try to look at longer term trends that are happening, and in particular we'll look from the year 2000 to 2010. All the data that I'm going to be presenting comes from the U.S. Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Commerce, and the Census Bureau. It's all available. Students would have to play with it a little bit to get it into the form that I'm going to present it in, but it's all out there. Okay. So now the first thing we're going to look at is GDP and population. So GDP by itself is not just a good measure of economic growth. You have to look at the actual population of the country, how that's growing. If your population is growing faster than your economy is growing, your per capita GDP is going to be going down. So you have to look at these two effects here. And if we look at population, or rather if we look at GDP in the blue there, it's increasing from the year 2000 to 2010 roughly by about 15%. The graphs that I have here, everything is normalized to 100 here, starting in the year 2000. GDP per capita is growing at a slower rate because population is partly compensating for the growth in the GDP, okay? So during that same period from 2000 to 2010, GDP per capita in the red there is increasing by about 7% or so. And you clearly see the effect of the recession, the terrible recession that we had in the year about 2007 to 2008, you see the recovery starting to happen right there in 2009. Okay, so this is one measure of growth. That's a good thing. If the economy in the last 10 years has grown on a per capita basis by about 7%, that is generally a decent and a good thing, right? So this will draw us then into a discussion about mean and median and about averages, how we actually take averages and how distributions of economic activity can change the mean or the median in statistical calculations later on in the semester. And so what we end up doing is looking at the median household income. And we say, how does the economy here, the growth in the economy affect the average family, the median family here, the one right in the middle, the 50th percentile. And so it turns out that if you look at the median household income during that period 2000 to 2010, it's actually dropped by about 7%, okay? So in spite of the fact that the GDP per capita has increased by 7%, the median household income has decreased by about 7%. And that's sort of an alarming thing when you actually see that there. And it turns out from year 2000 to 2005 or so, the median household income was going down in spite of the fact that the economy was ramping up, right? And it's sort of an interesting thing. Again, you see the effect of the recession there quite clearly in 2007. And the median household income is continuing to slide downward here. Okay. So you may say, okay, well, the economy, the mean part of the economy, or the average GDP per capita is increasing, the median household income is decreasing, maybe I can live with that. If I have a good job and good employment opportunities, I can change my lifestyle, consume less, buy less things, and I can still have a decent life. So now that leads us into a third way of looking at the economy, and that is by looking at the employment situation. How many workers are really needed in the economy to power a growing economy? And in order to do that, what we end up doing is, sorry, let me backtrack to just one little thing here that's sort of interest here. When we talk about the mean and the median incomes, then it's useful to summarize some of this information here. And what I do is I show this quote to my students here. I don't show where it came from. It came from the CIO Fact Book as an analysis of the United States, but I read the quote to them. And then I say, where do you think this comes from? And usually what they end up guessing is they think that it comes from some liberal think tank or some liberal news media, and then I show them it came actually from the CIA. And the quote, it says here, I'll just read it to you a little bit. So the US has the largest and most technologically powerful economy in the world. The onrush of technology largely explains the gradual development of a two-tier labor market in which those at the bottom lack the education, professional, technical skills of those at the top end. And then they fail to get comparable pay raises, health insurance coverage, and other benefits. And since 1975, practically all gains in household income have gone to the top 20% of households. And again, this leads into the idea of income distributions, wealth distribution in the country, mean, median, those type of things, discussion. Okay? So now the next thing we're going to do is look at employment situation. So it turns out that in our country, we're getting more and more productive. Productivity is increasing at about 2% per year, which doesn't sound like that much, but over a 10-year period, it means that your productivity has increased by 25% or so, okay, which is very significant. And it turns out that if you take the productivity of a worker and you take the gross domestic product divided by the productivity, that actually gives you the number of workers needed in your economy, okay? So if you look at the units of this thing, in class I go over this a little more slowly and look at the units and the little dimensional analysis to convince them that this is so. And it turns out that if we look at the productivity in red on the top here, the productivity over a 10-year period has been growing faster than the actual economy. And because of that, you need less workers to power your economy, okay? So in the black and the bottom here is the number of workers needed in the economy. So we've gone down by about 15% or so since 2000, from 2000 to 2010. And that's a sort of shocking number, okay? And if we look at the difference between our population, which is growing by about 10% in the last 10 years, and the number of workers we need, which has gone down by about 15%, there's a big gap between the two of them there. So there's a structural sort of imbalance between our population, the number of workers that we have, and the number of workers that we need to power the growing economy that we have, okay? So that leads into a little discussion in class. I toss these questions out to them. Can we have full employment? How long should the work week be? Will this income distribution between the rich and the poor get more extreme, where the rich are getting richer and poor are getting poorer? How should taxes best be collected? And then finally, where does all this automation and computerization lead, which has increased the productivity in our country? And for that thing, what I do is I show them the Google car here, and I show them a little video of the Google car driving itself in California. And a lot of them are familiar with that, and the ones who aren't familiar, they quickly come up to speed with that. And then we have a discussion about where this might lead to in the future. That increases in productivity and technology are fantastic for the person who can use the technology. For me, a Google car would be fantastic, right? Instead of driving, I can read the newspaper or whatever it is, right? But it's going to change things dramatically for people who are working, who are truck drivers and bus drivers and taxi drivers. And it's going to put a lot of those people out of work, or it's going to shift those jobs to very highly skilled jobs where they're going to be remotely controlling 10 buses or 10 cars at one time instead of one of them, okay? So it would really change things. So in conclusion, I just want to say that news media or news literacy is a very important component of statistics here in my class, and I'm trying to make it more and more important, and I think there's definitely a growth opportunity in trying to infuse news literacy into a statistics class. This is an area where if I had my way, I would throw away my current curriculum in statistics, and I would have it all based on news literacy and how it ties into statistics. Okay, so thank you for your time.